Hello, everyone, and welcome to Where Are We Now? This is a brand new podcast from Theatre Alberta that is highlighting the artists working in our industry and really asking them the question of where are we now? Where are we as a community in Alberta? Thank you for joining us again. This is our third episode, and we are very, very excited to have on board two members from the Nextfest Festival, Kina Leon and Shyanne Duquette.
Yes, hello.
Welcome, pals. How's it going today?
Oh, good. It's great to be here. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for being here. I'm genuinely very excited about this conversation, and I am very, very thankful to you both for making it happen. So very excited to have you both on board. To start us off, why don't we get to know you both a little bit? Would either of you like to go first and introduce yourself and kind of what made you an artist here in Alberta?
I can start. So my name is Kina Leon. My pronouns are they, them. And I actually started working in theater probably roughly around 3 years ago. So I come from music and entertainment background, and how I got into theater was that a dance company asked me to be their stage manager. Now, why did I say yes? I don't know. Maybe it was just newbie optimism. So I started as a stage manager and shortly retired thereafter after a couple of fringe shows because that was not my wheelhouse. And because of kind of like the folks that I met along the way, like through Fringe and also Nextfest, I made some connections and found my way as a sound designer, which is more like in my wheelhouse because I came from music and audio background. And through Nextfest, because I actually did a progress showing of The Debut, which was a play that I wrote. It was formerly called Queer Chords. I made additional connections, and then now I was able to produce my show just this last month. But so yeah, I feel very grateful that I get to do this. I get to share this with folks. So
that's awesome. And let me tell you, I fully understand. I tried stage management one before as well, and it is not easy.
No. That's why I'm like, I am retiring. No more.
Going out while you're on top.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh. And can you tell us your involvement with Nextfest as well?
Yeah. So I started as a Nextfest artist. So as I mentioned before, I got accepted to do a progress showing of my play in 2022. So I did a 15-minute version of The Debut, which was formerly called Queer Chords. And through there, I was mentored by Ellen, and that was really the first time that I was able to go through kind of like a producing process from, how to build a team, how to kind of get things from like rehearsal to like show ready. So that's kind of how I met Ellen. And from there, we were able to kind of continue to work together from there.
Cool. Shyanne, do you want to go next?
Sure. Yeah. So, hello, my name is Shyanne Duquette, and I'm a Cree mixed blood artist from Amiskwaci here. Since graduating the University of Alberta in 2021 with a BA, I've been able to explore like a variety of roles within the theater industry, including acting, admin, assistant directing, playwriting, and producing. I'm a community-focused artist who often looks down to break down barriers of entry in my practice and beyond. My own work often focuses on themes of identity, community, and things that set people's teeth on edge. With Nextfest, I'm coming in as their kind of new marketing and communications manager. I've been with the festival in a variety of roles in the past, including as like an artist in high school with their high school program way back in the day. I did my own show, a reading 2 years ago now, I think, of a show called Amisamau that translates to She is the Eldest Sister in Cree. And then last year, I was a part of their emerging artist producing program. So after having all of these crossing overs over the last couple of years here, they decided to bring me on in a tangible way. And I've been very excited to be brought on.
Thank you both so much for those introductions. Now, let's introduce what I'm calling like the third character in our chat today, Nextfest. So I like giving it like a personality, But do we want to talk a little bit more just about like what Nextfest is and kind of like everything it offers? And then you can talk a little bit about this year's Nextfest as well.
For sure, I can start. So, Nextfest is a multidisciplinary festival for emerging artists. We provide support and platform for artists within their first 10 years of their career, and if they're not part of a professional affiliation yet. And the festival kind of allows artists to either do their first production for the first time or try a new type of work that they wanted to kind of bring to fruition. And NextFest is there to provide mentorship support as well as just kind of the logistical supports to kind of make things happen for artists. So this year it's running from May 30th to June 9th. Folks can expect lots of talented theater artists, dance artists, musicians, visual artists, film. Oh my goodness, like all sorts of really new local work. Yeah, and sometimes too you could see like work kind of in development as well. So it's quite exciting, to be honest. Oh, and there's DJs too. I cannot forget my DJs. Yeah.
As a DJ, can't forget your DJs.
As a DJ, I can't forget my DJs. Correct. Yes. Yeah.
So are these 11 days kind of self-contained to the Roxy, or are these kind of experiences that can be found all along the neighborhood and the city?
So most of the programming is within the Roxy. However, we're really excited that our music programming is happening at the Helen Nolan Park, which is about like a block away from the Roxy. And this year too, the 124th Business Association was great in terms of partnering with us so that we can put some visual art throughout some of the establishments here along 124th Street. So we're super stoked about that. So the goal has always been to integrate all of the vendors and establishments here, and I feel like this year we're starting to do that now. So excited.
That's super awesome. That's great to get the whole community like on board and to make the whole kind of street feel like the whole festival is happening there. Shyanne, anything you wanted to add?
Not really. I think we've really highlighted how since 1996, when we were founded, we've really tried to be a common ground for the next generation of creators and producers all around Edmonton, providing spaces within Theatre Network and beyond.
Thank you. So we've talked about the festivals, but we talked about you as an artist, but what I'm really interested in asking and talking about is, as part of Nextfest, you are kind of put in a situation of mentorship, and you get to communicate and really collaborate with some really amazing emerging artists. So I'm kind of just curious, like, how it's been, first of all, this year, and if you have any kind of like patterns or topics or anything in general that is exciting the emerging artists in Alberta right now.
So I can start, and it's interesting because I feel like this festival has been like officially like my first year as the festival operations manager, because I came in last year just almost near the festival, so I felt like I was just learning as I went. And now that I've gone through kind of like a whole year life cycle of the festival, there's still a lot to learn. So I guess I'm saying that to preface the things that I'm saying, because I feel like I'm coming from points of discovery still, even in the present moment. But the new thing that we tried to do this year, 2024, is that we tried to offer kind of more workshops. So Ellen offered like the first playwrights workshop and also the producing 101 workshop. And I find that as emerging artists, those types of workshops where you can gain knowledge about, pretty important skills, either as a theater artist or just if you want to produce something, I found those like really valuable for emerging artists, because I don't necessarily find that there's a lot of those resources available in terms of like practical kind of skill sets and knowledge to kind of help you move forward if you ever want to produce your first show or like produce your first play or write your first play. So I found that there was a lot of kind of success and kind of need for that.
That's really cool, because I just remember when I graduated, there was a really heavy focus on getting in the place and not necessarily creating your own work. which I think is interesting to hear now that there's quite a hunger for workshops that are kind of more geared towards you creating your work and you putting your stuff out there.
Yeah, that's what we noticed for sure. I'm not sure, like, Cheyenne's perspective too. I'm kind of curious as well, but that's what I found.
Yeah, I also agree that there's a sort of a push to producing. I'm curious, though, as to if this is almost pushed within our own institutions that are creating new artists. I'm also very new in this role, so I'm going to be speaking more broadly in terms of emerging artist experience in general, because I myself am also, surprise, surprise, an emerging artist. I only graduated 3 years ago, and I found, fascinatingly enough, throughout my university experience, I was constantly approached with the idea that there's not necessarily going to be space for me in larger institutions or spheres within the theater industry, and that unfortunately it is my burden as a creator of color and a creator who lives in the margins to kind of elbow my way into these spaces. I think more and more we are seeing a lot of new artists who are extremely concerned in the safety, emotional well-being, and accessibility of these spaces. And as young artists, we are beginning to recognize that if large companies or institutions are not allowing all of us to eat, then none of us want to be there. And not in a burn everything down kind of way. A little bit in a burn everything down kind of way. But I also think there's a lot of, how do we get these larger institutions to listen to us? How do we build these connections? And how do we start anew in a post-pandemic world? Even though we're not post-pandemic, I hate that term because so many autoimmune people are dealing with the ramifications of the pandemic. And we are so hopelessly not in a post-pandemic world. But I think it helped change our outlook and how we interact in community with one another.
Cheyenne, you gave me so much there to just like chew on. That was amazing. I really want to touch a little bit on if you can go a little bit farther in on the piece about emerging artists really focusing on the safety of spaces that they're working in and kind of what that's looking like and how that might be manifesting in some of the stuff you're seeing for the festival. Or just in general, like you said, just broadly as an emerging artist.
Yeah, I'm thinking about in terms of the community that I'm seeing built. I feel like more and more we are, sorry, my cats are tearing up the cat tree beside me. But I feel like more and more we're seeing the development of community spaces wherein we're allowed to have these broader conversations. So I think about things like the Edmonton Fringe is doing a lot of outreach work in terms of trying to reach communities outside of themselves and widen their frame of knowledge. We see that with us in terms of communicating with accessibility coordinators as like a wider industry standard. And we also see it within things like post-marginal, which is a sort of community care. I don't know. We both went to an event together, Andreas. Do you know how to more represent?
Sure. Yeah, I can talk a little bit, mostly because we actually just had Post-Marginal as our last episode. So great tie-in. That's awesome. But yeah, Post-Marginal, for those of you who might not have heard the episode or who might not remember, is like a 4-day, I want to call it like a retreat or like an event. But it was really just the gathering of 40 artists getting together to kind of get to know each other and build community and also talk about and tackle some of the questions that are popping up in our industry, right? Like we saw questions about multilingual theater and what space that can be and how artists can use different languages to tell their story. And we also saw a question and a kind of workshop around like casting across differences. So it was just I would call it like a 4-day retreat of artists just talking. It kind of reminded me of like when they talk about the Roman forums where they would talk about like math and art and stuff like that. It just kind of felt like that. It was very much felt like a forum. But anyway, sorry, I don't mean to talk at length about it. But yeah, things like Post-Marginal are popping up.
Even Azimuth themselves, I know you guys host like producer meetings and stuff like that. And we're allowing the facilitation of these spaces where we can have these large conversations of what does a future, more equitable theater community look like? And how do we make the steps to get there? And it's so uncomfortable to speak about that from where we are, where it's not equitable or accessible for everybody, but we need to in order to get to where we want to be.
I do love that. And I do very much thank you again for also plugging Asimov. I feel like somehow this turned around and now it's about me. No, I really do appreciate it because it's often as you're working in the admin, I'm doing quotes, or like the producing side of these festivals or these events, you kind of worry that you're imposing or prescribing your own thoughts of what the community should focus on. So it's nice to hear that there is kind of a push from the emerging artists to focus on building the community and to focus on making spaces accessible and equitable and really pushing for that to be a new standard in our industry, as opposed to being like something that gets highlighted as like a special award or a special recognition for that, when we really are at a point where it feels like that is no longer an option, but it should be the standard. And so it's nice to hear that that's also being pushed. As emerging artists yourself, like besides accessibility, which is really important, what else do you think is kind of ticking, especially for artists that are living here in Alberta? We have such an interesting positionality even within our own nation to be artists working and choosing to live in Alberta. So is there anything in there that's like bubbling up for you?
Well, I just want to kind of echo what Cheyenne said. Like, for me, all of my work, well, like at least like the primary focus of my work is to create opportunities for folks like myself, because I do notice that the kind of the bigger organizations, and like they don't necessarily have opportunities for someone like me. So I think, which is why I quickly pivoted to just decide that it's like, okay, I'm going to self-produce, or most of the work I'm going to do is kind of uplifts, like queer POC stories, or like queer POC work. And that's kind of where most of my work has leaned into, just because of that necessity. So it's interesting that, yeah, it's come from necessity, at least for me.
I think it's interesting being an artist in Alberta, because especially coming from my own positionality of like a queer mixed individual, of a perceived proximity to whiteness, I feel like I'm constantly in conflict with other people. That can be conflict with the government, with my own family members, with fellow creators, as to where we're at, and just like the trauma that we all carry of being within the prairies, which I think is hilarious to say out loud, but a very real sentiment. I know something I experienced throughout my youth as someone who like has family from small town Alberta. When I like tried to move into those communities, tried to establish myself in those spaces of myself as I am, not being welcome there. And I know this is a feeling many Albertans and like queer Albertans and Albertans who are also artists and feel we are not welcome. So I feel like we find ourselves in these large cityscapes wanting to really establish ourselves and take hold and announce to the world, we are here, we are welcome here, and there are spaces that are welcome for individuals who are like us, even if you're not welcome in your own individual like communities within the larger prairies. There are other pockets of goodness. I feel like when you think about the prairies and arts in the prairies and working in Edmonton, there's a little bit of a, oh geez, I don't know about that. But it is like a really lovely community. And once you find your place and you find that you are safe to be in community with, you can start to sing and flourish together.
I do kind of agree with you. There's a bit of a, oh, you're an artist in the prairies? Woof.
When you can move to Toronto.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if you want to take your job seriously, when are you moving? But the prairies offers us so much that we can take advantage of if we decide to stay and to create those spaces. So thank you for that. Kina, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, because like as an artist in Alberta, it's like you're almost torn in half. It's like on one end, it's like, my goodness, do I really want to be a queer POC artist here in the prairies? But also the type of stories that we would push out there and that we would share, it is kind of necessary for people in the prairies to hear. So it's like, it's like, as an artist, we're not just here to well, at least I'm speaking for myself here. Like as an artist, I don't believe that I should just be sharing something unquote beautiful. Like, I want to share something that would make people think, introspect, kind of look at things differently. And sometimes that may put you in a position where it's like, oh, maybe a company doesn't want to show it because it's too risque, or like, this is, you won't have the audience who would support this kind of project. So it's like, you're always in that middle point of like deciding which way to go. But you're right, like the prairies does have a lot to offer. It's just, yeah, it would be great to have more support, I suppose. So.
I mean, 100%, right? Like, even just within granting bodies would be so nice to have more support. But I do appreciate that Shyanne did touch on this as well, where it's like the support that is here, it might not be astronomical where there is so much abundance and everyone is producing their plays. But I really do believe that once you find your community, and once you start putting yourself out there, this community will see you as an artist and it will work to afford you opportunity so you can continue growing. I think because it wants to keep you here, right?
That is so true. Yeah. I definitely feel like the folks that I've met along the way have been so supportive and nurturing, and I feel very lucky because I've never felt, where I was steered to make myself more digestible in order to be able to be supported in a project of mine. Like I never received that, which I'm really grateful for, because I think I would just be like, well, no, this is not what I want to do if I have to be digestible somehow. So, and make my art that way. So yeah, no, I do agree with you that once you find your community, it does nurture you and does provide like a lot of support. So.
That's beautiful. That makes me really, honestly, quite happy to hear. Because it hasn't been the case for the longest time where artists in Edmonton haven't been kind of ushered towards one standard. So it's nice to hear that we're actually kind of getting beyond that and kind of going, who are you as a human and what art are you making? Okay, so going back to your positions within the festival.
Okay, let's go. No.
Well, a little bit, right? But I'm kind of just curious as to, like, with everything that Nextfest is producing this year, are you seeing a pattern in terms of topics that artists are wanting to talk about? Or like maybe different types of theater that are popping up that are interesting to note as like an interest for newer artists? What do you see? What do you hear? What's exciting you to hear artists being like, oh, this is what my play is about, or, things like this?
I can jump in here, if you need some time to think. Yeah. Yeah, as I do a lot of the marketing for a lot of these things and gathering up all of the materials for all the festivals to a place where we can all delve into it. So I think I'm pretty keen to answer this. I notice a lot of young artists are really excited by clown and explorations of self in a way that maybe they aren't before. So a lot of like our scripts and our theater main stage performances this year include a lot of explorations of people's families and their roots and where they come from or where their families come from in a way that maybe you wouldn't have seen 10 years ago. We're obviously developing a community and a festival where people feel comfortable sharing kind of these intimate parts of themselves that maybe they're still all very young artists. So maybe it's something they're still working through and developing through. They still feel safe sharing that. So we have a lot of explorations on that. We have some interesting films, and a lot of them are kind of like, I guess, kind of horror-ish based. So I'm curious as to how much horror we're going to continue seeing in the festival going on. Yeah, those are some of the things that are like buzzing to me right now.
Maybe because like I'm always like, a big cheerleader for like queer POC stuff. So I really love the fact that there is so many queer artists like in the festival. Honestly, like I think it's just kind of a testament to how folks feel safe in this festival to kind of, showcase their art, know that they can be themselves, and know that there's space and support for them. So like I'm always excited. Like there are some plays by by some playwrights that I'm super stoked to, and that share queer stories. So like that's what I'm really stoked about.
Yeah, I love hearing all this, especially like I'm not gonna lie to you, the connection between like queer POCs and horror. It's so strong. And I think that like I mean that is a whole conversation on its own about like what that connection is and why it's a connection. But that's exciting to hear that people are creating horror films in Alberta because that's super rad. So, as part of the fest, you do a lot of the work to prepare it, but as like participants, you still get to like go to the events, you still get to see how it happens, see the shows. So, is there anything you're really excited about, or anything you're looking forward to participating in this year?
I'm excited to check out all of the nightclubs. We have some amazing producers this year. This first weekend alone, so our opening night is this Thursday, May 30th. And then on the Friday is it the EAPP nightclub? It's a And then it's our Pride nightclub on June 1st, I believe. I'm like looking at my calendar as like I'm sharing all of this, but the it's I'm really excited for all the artists that are going to be showcased this weekend. And you know, the first weekend is always like we love to start with a bang. So I want folks to check it out. It's going to be an assortment of emerging artists, and like it'd be cool for folks to take in like who the new talent is in town too. So
Yeah, so those nightclubs that you were flagging was the Sensational Cabaret, May 31st at 9:30 p.m. by sort of our emerging artist producing program. So that was the team that I was part of last year. Now they're creating a whole new festival, kind of based on the Seven Deadly Sins. So let's see what that's about. Sounds a lot of fun. And then on June 1st, we have the Rock and Roll Hall of Slay, sort of curated by Leah Humphrey and Gemma Nye, where we are invited to go hard in the pit and rub carabiners with some of history's most influential queer music icons. And then the following weekend on Friday, June 7th, we have Smut Night, Slut Fight. Get ready for a slut fight. We are sluts and we fight. And then finally, kind of keeping a little more PG, on Saturday, June 8th at 1 p.m., we have Kids Are All Right, our kind of under 18 nightclub.
I love these. And so these nightclubs are just really events that folks can show up and get to know each other and just party? Or is there like what brought up the nightclubs?
ooh, so I think it was like these nightclubs are. It's not just like a party where you go in and you just like dance. It's like I would really call it like an immersive experience. You go in and the Roxy is transformed into whatever the theme of the night is. So all of the producers will curate the night as such, and you get to take in different performing artists all throughout the space, as in the Roxy Theater, and then yeah, and then the music thereafter, where you would be partying with other artists, would also be of the same theme. So
That's great. Honestly, like the nightclubs sound like such a great time and a great part of the festival. Is there anything else outside of like the festival, like the shows that are happening and the nightclubs that you kind of want to promote before we kind of hop off this conversation?
Yeah, I think real quick, just rapid fire, I want to promote the music night that we have. It's a whole bunch of live music in the park. Check out our website for more information. And we have a whole bunch of lovely individual workshops being done. So one I'm very excited for is like a basics to contemporary dance, where all body types, all movement availabilities are welcome, taught by Debbie, again on our website, and a intro to clowning, which will be very fun. And so many more workshops. Please check them all out. Everything at nextfest.ca.
Pals, before I let you go, I'm kind of just wondering, is there anything you also kind of want to bring up that we haven't talked about when it comes to emerging artists or being an emerging artist? Anything that you want to bring up?
I mean, I feel like it's a continual, like I feel like it's like a constant conversation too. I think the most important thing is just for emerging artists to continuously like just communicate, bring feedback, and that way, you know, like festivals or organizations just kind of know, right? So how to support them, how to make sure that the space is safe and supported for them.
Thank you for bringing that up, because feedback is so huge, and I think like oftentimes people don't think that the feedback is actually going to be like read or even looked at. But I think as organizations try to get better and try to get more accurate to what artists in our communities need at this point in time, feedback can be such a huge way of making sure that we get that information.
Oh yeah, totally. And the organization may not get to it like stat, but at least it's already in their radar for next year's programming or something like that. But yeah, it's important to just kind of let your voice be heard, really. So
does Nextfest also do feedback for like audiences?
Yes, there are actually many different ways you can get in contact with Nextfest. We will have a survey or a form that you can respond to at the end of the festival, but also at any time, whenever, you're welcome to reach out at hello@nextfest.ca, and that's kind of our general inquiries email that is actually monitored by me. So anytime you want to reach out, give us a nice little silly joke or any thoughts about Nextfest or any future thoughts for shows or ideas that you have, please reach out.
Well, I think at that beautiful note, I'm going to say thank you both so much. And thank you for being open to having this conversation in such a beautiful, transparent way and bringing yourselves into this, into the work that you're doing. I think it's so important that like as emerging artists from years gone, let's make us sound as old as we can. But I really do think it's so important to make sure that like the space that was given to us is also reciprocated in the space that we make to others. And so I am so thankful for the two of you for doing the work that you're doing, because I know admin work is not what any of us went to art school for, but it's so important to our community and it really does keep these programs going. So thank you so much for doing this work and for being willing to come and talk on a podcast for, a little bit of time and just being so great at it. So thank you both so much for being here. Again, Shyanne Duquette and Kina Leon, both of you are amazing. You can find them working for Nextfest right now and probably working for other stuff in the future because they're busy artists. But I can't wait to see what else y'all do in the future. So keep us updated. And other than that, thank you all for listening. Bye-bye.
Theatre Alberta's Where We Now podcast is produced with the operating support we receive from Alberta Foundation for the Arts, the Edmonton Arts Council, and Calgary Arts Development. We're grateful for their support. Theatre Alberta is proud to work in and serve members across Alberta in Treaties 6, 7, and 8 territories, as well as Treaty 4 and 10, and all regions of the Métis Nation of Alberta.